Imagine being forced to share the crowning achievement of your life with a man whom you fundamentally believe is destroying the world. This wasn't a Hollywood script. It was the raw, bitter reality of the 1974 Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences. On the grand stage of Stockholm stood two men, Gunnar Myrdal and Friedrich Hayek. They were not merely economists. They were the avatars of two diametrically opposed ideologies. One believed that the government is the great architect necessary to fix society's flaws. The other believed that any government attempt to control the economy is the first step toward tyranny, a road to serfdom. The Nobel Committee, in a historic attempt, or perhaps a blunder, to appear balanced, paired them together. The result was an atmosphere thick with awkwardness. Myrdal later publicly declared that the Nobel Prize in Economics should be abolished simply because he felt humiliated to be listed alongside a reactionary like Hayek. And Hayek? He quietly accepted it, a vindication that his patience against the tide of history had finally paid off. Have you ever felt helpless watching macroeconomic policies steer your life, wondering if the people in charge actually know what they are doing? That specific anxiety is exactly what these two men spent their lives trying to decode. Their story is not just about economics. It is a story about human nature. Should we be left in absolute freedom to sink or swim? Or do we need an iron hand in a velvet glove to guide us? Their answers will send shivers down your spine because of their brutal accuracy in today's world.
To understand why this shotgun marriage between Myrdal and Hayek matters so much, we must rewind to the suffocating atmosphere of the 1970s. It was the moment the Keynesian dream was shattering. For decades, the world believed economists were like engineers. Just turn this knob, adjust that valve, pump a little money here, and the economy would run smoothly. But by 1974, that machine had exploded. Inflation skyrocketed, unemployment spread, a monstrous phenomenon called stagflation that the old theories couldn't explain. The world was in panic. The old formulas were dead. And from the ashes of that skepticism, two voices from the past emerged louder than ever. They weren't awarded for new discoveries. They were honored for work done in the 1930s and 1940s on money and economic cycles. But deeper than that, they were honored because they were social philosophers. They didn't look at cold numbers. They saw the blood, tears, oppression, and yearning for freedom behind the graphs. The scariest thing isn't an economic collapse. It's when the so-called experts admit they don't know what's happening. Have you ever felt that insecurity watching financial news? That is when you need to listen to Hayek and Myrdal.
Gunnar Myrdal was more than an economist. He was a sociologist, a politician, and above all, a believer in the power of human reason to reshape the world. He viewed the world not as a wilderness to be left alone, but as a garden full of weeds that needed planting. To Myrdal, poverty, injustice, and racism were not natural. They were failures of the system that humans could and must fix. His groundbreaking work, An American Dilemma, The Negro Problem and Modern Democracy, 1944, wasn't about bank interest rates. It was about America's greatest scar, racism. Myrdal identified what he called cumulative causation. Picture this. A poor person is denied education. They lack skills. They can't get a good job. Their children remain poor. Social prejudice labels them as lazy. It is a downward spiral with no bottom. Myrdal argued that the free market would never solve this on its own. On the contrary, the market would deepen the wound. Only strong, planned state intervention could break that vicious cycle. He is the hero of the left, the godfather of the Nordic welfare model that many admire today. He gives us validation that compassion needs to be institutionalized into law. But on the other side of the trench, another man was looking at those exact grand plans and seeing the seeds of hell.
Does state benevolence always yield good results? Or sometimes, does the very effort to control everything create new monsters? Hold on to that thought, for Friedrich Hayek is about to enter the story to challenge everything you believe. If Gunnar Myrdal was celebrated by the masses for promising a better world through state intervention, Hayek was the man standing in the shadows, whispering a terrifying warning that no one wanted to hear. In 1944, as Myrdal published An American Dilemma calling for social reform, Hayek released a bombshell of a booklet, The Road to Serfdom. Hayek's message was cold and surgical. Good intentions do not guarantee good results. He argued that fascism in Germany or collectivism elsewhere did not spring from villains wanting to destroy the world. On the contrary, it started with good people, people who wanted to plan the economy to serve the community. But Hayek warned, once you give the state the power to decide who wins and who loses economically, you are forced to grant them control over your personal life. Have you ever felt suffocated by bureaucratic red tape enacted for the public good? That is the first taste of what Hayek called serfdom. When economic freedom is lost, political freedom soon evaporates. Why was Hayek convinced that the state, even if assembled from the brightest minds, would never run an economy better than the free market?
This is not a political issue. It is a problem of math and information. Hayek introduced the core concept that won him the Nobel, the knowledge problem. Imagine you want to manage the supply of bread for the entire city of New York. What do you need to know? 1. The dietary preferences of 8 million people, changing every morning. 2. Weather conditions affecting wheat in Kansas. 3. Gas prices for transportation. 4. The mood of the baker. No supercomputer, and certainly no government committee, can collect and process that massive, dispersed, and fleeting amount of information, time and local knowledge. According to Hayek, only one mechanism can handle this: the price system. When the price of wheat rises, the baker automatically conserves flour, and consumers automatically buy less, without anyone giving an order. The market is a vast information network where every price is an encoded signal. When the government intervenes, for example, imposing price ceilings, they aren't just skewing the numbers, they are destroying information. They are like a blindfolded driver trying to steer a car based on directions from a passenger in the back seat who is also blindfolded. The fatal conceit Hayek referred to is the delusion of planners like Myrdal believing they possess enough data to arrange the lives of millions. That feeling of intellectual superiority when you believe you know how to spend other people's money better than they do, Hayek says that is humanity's most dangerous trap. However, the story isn't simply that Hayek is right and Myrdal is wrong. If Hayek were absolutely correct, why do we still need governments? Myrdal looked at Hayek's spontaneous order and scoffed. He pointed out that spontaneous often implies the strong devouring the weak. In his theory of cumulative causation, Myrdal demonstrated that a negative shock, like a factory closing, does not self-correct. It creates a domino effect. Unemployment, rising crime, investment flight, the death of the region. The free market has no self-repair mechanism for this systemic collapse. It only makes things worse. Myrdal represents the cry of those left behind, those whom the market's invisible hand has accidentally strangled. He argued that for true freedom to exist, humans need a secure foundation, and that foundation must be built by public institutions.
The great contradiction. Hayek fears the state becoming a leviathan monster that swallows freedom. Myrdal fears the market becoming a jungle where humans tear each other apart. Both make sense, and tragically, both fears have materialized in history. Do you feel torn? Part of you wants the freedom to make money without scrutiny, Hayek, but another part wants society to protect the vulnerable, Myrdal. Congratulations, you are experiencing the exact Nobel paradox within your own mind. Open your bank account or digital wallet. Have you ever asked yourself, why is this currency losing value? Or why does the state have the right to print more money and dilute my labor? If you've ever had that thought, welcome to the Church of Hayek. In his final years, Hayek wrote a prophetic book, The Denationalization of Money. He argued that as long as the state holds a monopoly on issuing currency, inflation will remain a tool to legally pick the pockets of the people. His dream was a world where private currencies compete, and the one that best preserves value wins. In 2008, amidst the global financial crisis, exactly the collapse scenario Hayek warned about regarding reckless money printing, a mysterious figure named Satoshi Nakamoto birthed Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the digital incarnation of Hayekian thought. No central bank, decentralized, fixed supply, anti-inflationary, operated by mathematical rules, not political will. Every time you hear someone talk about DeFi, decentralized finance, or Web3, they are unwittingly quoting Hayek. It is humanity's attempt to escape the control of the visible hand and seek absolute freedom. Where does the intellectual superiority of crypto enthusiasts come from? It stems from the belief that they hold a truth the traditional financial system, fiat, is trying to hide, that money does not need the government to exist. But wait, don't celebrate for the libertarians just yet. On the other side of the trench, Gunnar Myrdal is smiling from the grave. Recall Hayek's objection to planned economies, the knowledge problem. He said no one has enough data to plan for society. But what happens if we do have enough data?
Welcome to the era of big data and AI. Every click, every second you pause on a TikTok video, every item you drop into your Shopee cart, it's all recorded. Tech giants and modern governments hold a colossal amount of information that Hayek could not have imagined in 1974. Today, algorithms don't just guess your needs, they create them. In China, social credit systems and digital surveillance are realizing Myrdal's dream of a tightly planned society, where good behavior is rewarded and bad behavior is instantly punished. In the West, Amazon and Google know what you want to buy before you even realize you need it. If Myrdal were alive, he would say, "You see, Hayek? The problem wasn't that planning was wrong. The problem was that we didn't have computers powerful enough back then. Now we can correct human flaws with algorithms." We are living in a strange paradox. We use decentralized technology, crypto, Hayek, to resist control, but simultaneously happily surrender our data to centralized systems, AI, big tech, Myrdal, in exchange for convenience, personalized fear. Do you get a shiver when a Facebook ad shows you the exact item you just talked about with friends? That is Myrdal's visible hand stroking you. We are trading privacy for safety and comfort, a price Hayek warned was too high. No example illustrates this battle more clearly than the Great Recession of 2008. When the market crashed, Camp Hayek screamed, "Let the banks fail. That is the market's natural cleansing. Bailing them out creates moral hazard." Camp Myrdal and Keynes retorted, "If we let them die, society will collapse in a chain reaction, cumulative causation. The state must intervene." The result? Governments chose Myrdal's way. Trillions of dollars were pumped in for bailouts. The world avoided total collapse, but we created zombie companies and a widening wealth gap, exactly as Hayek predicted. We are living in a Frankenstein economy, a free market body stitched together with powerful adrenaline shots from the government.
Let's be honest for a second. We all like to think of ourselves as lovers of liberty. We nod along when Hayek speaks of self-determination. But deep down, we also crave Myrdal's safety. This is the cruelest paradox exposed by the 1974 Nobel Prize. We are two-faced. When the stock market is rallying, you are Hayek. Leave me alone. Don't tax my profits. This is my talent. When the market crashes, you instantly morph into Myrdal. Where is the government? Why aren't they saving the economy? Where is the bailout? We want the brutal dynamism of capitalism when we are winning, but demand the soft safety net of socialism when we are losing. Emotion, shame, validation. Don't worry, you aren't alone. It's a survival instinct. We want freedom, but fear its price tag, responsibility. Hayek taught us a hard pill to swallow. True freedom is terrifying.
In a purely Hayekian world, absolute liberty, if you fail, it is your fault. There is no one to blame, no system oppressing you. You stand alone against the storm. Conversely, Myrdal's world offers immense psychological comfort. If you're poor, it's the fault of social structures. If you're unemployed, it's due to the economic cycle. Myrdal gives you a shoulder to cry on and a reason to be absolved. That is why, even though neoliberalism has dominated the world for the past 40 years, Myrdal's ideology is returning stronger than ever. Today's Gen Z, facing skyrocketing housing prices and climate uncertainty, is turning its back on the invisible hand. They are calling for a massive, visible hand to reorder this chaotic mess. Back to the stage in 1974. Perhaps the Nobel Committee wasn't mistaken or foolish to award the prize to these two enemies simultaneously. Perhaps it was the most profound message they ever sent.
They were saying, truth does not lie in the extremes. If you go too far toward Myrdal, you get the old Soviet Union, where forced equality kills motivation and bureaucracy strangles innovation. If you go too far toward Hayek, you get dark slums right next to gleaming skyscrapers, where the freedom of the strong is a death sentence for the weak. Human society is like a tightrope walker. Friedrich Hayek is the balancing pole on the right, reminding us to beware of state overreach. Gunnar Myrdal is the pole on the left, reminding us not to abandon the vulnerable. If you discard either of them, you fall. Tomorrow, when you read the news about a new bill, a new tax, or a new cryptocurrency, remember these two old ghosts. Do not blindly trust the market, but do not surrender your soul to the state either. Keep a dose of Hayek skepticism in your head and a measure of Myrdal's compassion in your heart. The war between them has never ended. It is happening in every spending decision, every election vote, and within the very conflict of your own conscience. And that, my friend, is true economics. It is not numbers on a ticker tape. It is the eternal struggle to find the balance between liberty and security. What do you choose? A golden cage with guaranteed food? Or a wild forest full of danger, but where the sky belongs to you alone?